Thank you so much, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to our 8th Health Matters with Hatsuno Kiseki Facebook live session. Thank you for joining us and thank you for your patience. In this session, Dr. Tan, like what he mentioned earlier, will be sharing what no added sugar means on product labels that we see during our grocery shopping daily or weekly. With more manufacturers trying to appeal to the growing population who demands healthier options, it is essential that we understand all the different terms that are being used these days, especially on the different types of sugar that are indicated in ingredient lists. Because sometimes I think locally we don't have that confusion, unlike in the US, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Tan, some sugars are in numbers, serial numbers or whatsoever, I do not know. Or is it additives?
Those are only for additives.
Okay, all right, okay. So we hope this session will arm all of you with the knowledge that you need to be a smarter consumer. And please feel free to ask any questions in the comment section below, and we'll try our best to answer them during this session. Also very important, if you, the audience, have topics that you feel passionate about and you would like us to talk about it, please don't be shy to message us or put it in the comment section. And we will definitely try to work something out for you. So without further ado, Dr. Tan, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Good evening to everyone. My name is DC. This session is my 3rd session on topics related to food labeling. So the topic for today is added sugars. The term sugar is not alien to all of us. Okay, we are quite used to this term sugar, and basically if you ask children, they do like something sweet, and most likely is due to the presence of sugar in the food product. Okay, so this term is not new to us. Okay, however, the issue with this term is that there are several meanings depending on the context of the conversation or where you are looking at this on the label. Okay, so most of the time when you talk about sugar, we are referring to the compound known as sucrose, or in layman terms we also call it as table sugar. Okay, so when you go to supermarket or when you are at the restaurant, you ask for sugar, the chemical compound that you are referring to is sucrose. Okay, so you can have a look at the structure at the bottom of this slide. Okay, this is the chemical structure of of sucrose, and it's a disaccharide. Okay, meaning that it is made of 2 monosaccharides, glucose and also fructose. So when these 2 combine together using a process called condensation, it forms a molecule called sucrose. Okay, so this term, okay, can appear on various parts of a food label. Okay, so for today we just only focus on food label, and it depends on the regulation and also the sub-regulation in Food Regulations 195 for the meaning of sugars. So as an example over here, I have 5 pictures. I label it as A, B, C, D, E. All these are showing the term sugar or sugars in different locations on food labels. Out of these 5, okay, let us start with the easier one. Okay, example like figure D. Okay, figure D over here is stated gula halus or fine sugar. So this is actually the product description on a food label. Okay, product description actually means that is to describe what is the product inside the packaging. So this packaging contains fine sugar. Okay, so if you are buying this type of product, actually you are buying sugar lah. So the sugar over here is referring to sucrose. Okay, the disaccharide that I mentioned just now. Okay, for figure E, okay, figure E will be this one. This is part of a ingredient list, okay, on a food label. And sometimes you can see the word sugar as one of the ingredient that is used to produce this product. Okay, so for example, over here you can see a little bit like wheat flour, sugar, fructose, dextrose, maltose, and so on. Okay, so all these ingredients are being used to produce this product. So the sugar that appears on the ingredient list is also referring to sucrose. Okay, so this is exactly the same sugar as mentioned in or as shown in figure D. Okay, but what is more important for us today is on the nutritional labeling, which is figure A and also figure C, and also the next one is on the claim. Okay, as you can see over here, the claim is no sugar added. Okay, but before we go to part B, okay, of figure B, let's have a look in figure A and also in figure C. So these two are part of the nutrition labeling. So nutrition labeling basically describe what are the nutrient content in the product. Okay, so like for figure A, okay, this is a beverage, okay, a ready to drink beverage. Over here you can see that stated jumlah gula or total sugar. This usually will appear below carbohydrates. Okay, so you can see that it's part of a carbohydrate, but carbohydrate is a bigger group of molecule because it covers more than sugar. Okay, so you can imagine that this is like a subset of carbohydrate. Okay, so for total sugar, this is referring to all the type of monosaccharide and disaccharide that are present in the product. Okay, so monosaccharide, like I mentioned just now, glucose and fructose, those are monosaccharides. Sucrose are disaccharide. So in this product, if you have sucrose in the product, then the amount of sucrose will be included in this total sugar. If you have glucose, it will also contribute to this value, 22 gram. If you have fructose, it will also be the same. So total sugar on the nutrition labeling is not just referring to sucrose, but also referring to any monosaccharides and also any disaccharides. And these monosaccharides and disaccharides can present in the product naturally. Okay, for example, like in fruit juice, okay, you have natural occurring sugar. Usually will be distillate, glucose, fructose, and also sucrose. Aside from this natural occurring sugar, it can also be added sugar, added by the manufacturer. Okay, so if you look at figure A, this product contains 11 grams of sugar or total sugar per 100 ml. Every 100 ml, you have 11 grams of total sugar. And this sugar, it can be sucrose, it can be fructose, it can be glucose. So it's not just referring to the table sugar, it is referring to any monosaccharides, any disaccharides. There are, I can say, more than 10 types of monosaccharide and disaccharide. Okay, so as long as your monosaccharide, the amount will appear, will contribute to this 11 gram. Okay, but majority of the sugar that presents in food are these three, glucose, fructose, and sucrose. Okay, the fourth one that is more common would be lactose, but those appear in milk product. Okay, lactose is also a type of disaccharide. Okay, so if you have lactose in the product, the amount of lactose will also contribute to total sugar. So this total sugar is not just referring to the table sugar, it's not referring to the amount added in on alone, but referring to all the sum of all monosaccharides and disaccharides. Okay, so this is quite common in our on the label for food that you can find in Malaysia, because this is considered as one of the mandatory information that are needed, especially on ready-to-drink beverage. Okay, other than ready-to-drink beverage, at the moment, still optional. Manufacturer can include this information. They can choose not to include the information. But for ready-to-drink beverage, they have to include this information. And later on in next year, that this information is considered as mandatory for all products. Okay. For figure C, this is also part of nutrition labeling. Okay, and you can see over here that you have what they call as added sugars. Okay, so this is different from total sugar. Added sugar is referring to sugars that are added by manufacturer. Okay, so it's not referring to those that appear naturally in the product or in the ingredient. These are added in, okay, and most of the added sugar we consume are basically in processed food. So if you consume soft drinks, cereal, desserts, all these are added by the manufacturer. And the reason why they add sugar to the product is basically for two reasons. One, to increase the flavor, to make it taste good. Two, it can actually help to extend the shelf life of a product. Okay, but not all types of product, certain types of product. Okay, so if you can see over here, you have total sugar, you have added sugar, and this is 23 grams of added sugar. That means the manufacturer actually add in 23 grams of sugar into this product during processing. And out of the 25 grams, 23 are added, and this is like 92% of the sugar in the product added by the manufacturer. Okay, this information on added sugar is not common in Malaysia yet because this is not mandatory by our government, but you can still see this information in some of the product, especially those imported from other country. In US, this is mandatory. So if you are looking at product imported from US, you will notice that this information will be there. Okay. So for the last figure, that is figure B. Okay, this is the reason why we are here today. Okay, we can see the no sugar added on the label. So this claim is what we know as non-additional claim. And please do not misinterpret this as no sugar or sugar-free. Okay, because no sugar and sugar-free means that inside the product, there's no sugar. Okay, but when they say no sugar added, that means manufacturer, they did not add sugar into the product, but the ingredient that they use may contain sugar. Okay, especially like fruit juice, naturally is there. Okay, milk naturally is there. You have lactose, that is the milk sugar. Okay, so no sugar added or no added sugar does not refer to the absence of sugar in the product. Some consumer might interpret this as no added sugar claim, as such that for the product, manufacturer did not add sugar to the product during processing. Okay, so this is not the case. The misinterpretation is sometimes based on, sometimes can be worse. Okay, whereby they might think that the manufacturer did not add any sugar at all or any sucrose into the product. Okay, and sometimes some manufacturer might actually misinterpret this claim. Okay, they might think that, okay, for non-added sugar, as long as I did not add in sucrose, I can use this claim. Okay, at the moment, there's no strict regulation on the use of no sugar added in Malaysia. Okay, but in 2024, which means next year, Malaysia Ministry of Health, they have already introduced a new regulation, and this new regulation will be added into the existing food regulation to regulate the use of this claim. Okay, so for manufacturers, they have to be very careful. Okay, it's not just sucrose. Okay, if you did not add sucrose into the product, doesn't mean that you can use this claim. Okay, because there are 4 criteria that you need to comply with before you can add in, before you can use this claim. Okay, so so what are the 4 criteria? Okay, so this is not something like recently created. Okay, this has been introduced by Codex, and I think some country actually adopted this criteria as part of their regulation. For Malaysia, we are a bit slow. We just introduced this as part of the amendment to our existing regulation, and it will be introduced, or not to say introduced, it will be enforced starting January 2024, which is next year. Okay, the MOH already created this regulation, I think, in the year 2020. Okay, but they have some maybe feedback from the industry saying that they are not ready with this claim. So actually they postpone it. Okay, they plan to introduce this year in July 2023. But then I think feedback from industry, they are not ready. So MOH actually delay it until January 2024. So hopefully by 2024 January, we can see the enforcement of this claim. Okay. So what are the criteria? Because in order to use the claim no sugar added or no added sugar, manufacturer, they have to comply with all these four, not just one, but all the four. Okay. So the first criterion is no sugar, no sugars of any type have been added to the food. Okay, so the sugar mentioned over here is not just sucrose, fructose, glucose, or lactose, but also including honey, molasses, corn syrup, and many others. Okay, as long as you add this type of food ingredient into your product, okay, then you cannot claim that your product is no added sugar. Okay, so this example that you see over here are just some examples for reference purposes, but it covers more than these four examples. Okay, you might ask why honey is considered as sugar? Because honey is high in sugar content. Easily you have at least 60% sugar in honey. Okay, at least 60%. Some can go even more, 70%, 80%. But at least you have 60% of sugar. And this sugar in honey basically are again glucose and fructose, and some traces of sucrose. If you have high amount of sucrose, basically those are fake honey. Okay, that is one of the way we can estimate, okay, or we can predict whether this product is it real honey or fake honey. We can look at the amount of sucrose that present in the product. In regulation for sucrose, not more than 10%. Usually it will be very low, maybe 1%, 2%, 3%. Okay, but it can go up to 10% for sucrose. But glucose and fructose combined together easily 60%. Okay, so you cannot have this ingredient added into your product. Once you add this ingredient into your product, then you cannot use the claim no added sugar. That's the first criterion. The second criterion is the food contains no ingredients that contain sugar as an ingredient. Okay, basically it means that if you are using an ingredient and that ingredient contains added sugar, okay, then if you use this ingredient to produce your product, you cannot claim your product as no added sugar as well. Okay, so example, like if you use jam to produce your product, the ingredient that you use, one of the ingredients that you use to produce a product is jam. And jam, as you know, contains added sugar. So if you use jam to produce your product is not jam. You use jam as one of the ingredients to produce your product, then your product cannot use the claim no sugar added. Okay, so example of ingredients in this category are jams, jelly, sweetened chocolate, sweetened fruit pieces, and so on. So these are ingredients that have been added with sugar. Okay, they have been added with sugar, and if you use this ingredient to create or to make or to produce your product, then it's as good as you add sugar into your product. Okay, so that is the second criterion. The third criterion, okay, the third one is the food contains no ingredients containing sugar that substitute for added sugar. Okay, this is slightly different from the second criterion. Okay, whereby if you look at the example over here, these are non-reconstituted concentrate fruit juices or dry fruit paste. Okay, this type of ingredient contains high amount of sugar, not because they are added by the manufacturer, but it's due to the processing of making this ingredient. Example, like you want to make dry fruit paste, you have to remove the moisture. When you remove the moisture, the concentration of sugar increase. So this ingredient can be used as a substitute for sugar because they are high in sugar content. Okay, so the sugar inside this ingredient, in these ingredients are not added, but they are in high concentration because of the process that was used to make this ingredient. Okay, like you want to make concentrated fruit juice, you have to do evaporation to remove most of the moisture or water content. So when you remove the water, basically you are concentrating the fruit juice, and by doing so, you increase the concentration of your sugar. So it will be very sweet, and if you use this type of product in your, this type of ingredient in your product, again, you cannot claim your product as no added sugar. Okay. And the last criterion is the sugar content in the food itself has not been increased by the amount contributed by the ingredient. So basically, this is saying that if you add in an ingredient, okay, and this ingredient might not be sugar, but it can actually increase the amount of sugar in the product. Okay, how can they do that? Okay, basically is by enzymatic reaction. Okay, because example like starch is a long polysaccharide. Okay, think of it like Lego pieces. You join all these Lego pieces to form a long chain. And each of these Lego pieces can be glucose. So it's a monosaccharide joining together to form a long chain. Okay, and this chain can be cut using enzyme. So when you introduce this long chain into your product, you're not adding sugar per se, like you're not adding sugar, but during the processing, actually, you might have some enzymatic reaction whereby this enzyme will cut the long chain and it will so-called release the glucose into your product. Okay, so by doing so, indirectly, you increase the sugar content as well. Okay, so if you use this type of ingredient and there is a chemical reaction or enzymatic reaction that happens, and this chemical reaction or enzymatic reaction can increase the sugar content, then also you cannot use the claim as no added sugar. Okay, so all these four claims are critical to avoid manufacturer interpreting this claim using their own definition. Okay, so this is a good advantage of having this type of regulation to control this type of claim. If there's no criteria, different manufacturer might use different definition. Some manufacturer might think that, oh, no sugar added means if I'm not adding sucrose into the product, then I can use this claim. Okay, but actually it's not as simple as that. Okay, I have to fulfill all these four criteria. And I believe most of the countries are following these four criteria. But of course, there are countries whereby they can amend. They might think that, oh, they just want to implement 3 criteria. They can do that. Okay, it depends on the authority at that particular country. In Malaysia, we sort of like enforce these 4 criteria. Okay, so far I have not seen anything more than these 4 criteria, but there are countries whereby they only enforce 3 out of these 4. Okay, so for manufacturers, you have to be very careful when you use the claim no added sugar, and for consumer, it will be a good news for us because we are so-called protected by the regulation. Okay, so that when we consume or when we purchase, when we are buying product with this type of claim, we can be rest assured that really there are no added sugar in the product. Okay, so these are the names, okay, that can be used to hide sugar. Okay, sometimes the word that they are using or the name that they are using can actually confuse us. Okay, because sometimes you are not familiar with the name. Example like dextrose. People don't know what's dextrose. They might think that, oh, it's a type of chemical. They might think that it's a type of compound. But what actually is dextrose? Dextrose is actually glucose. Okay, it's as good as glucose. It's another name for glucose. Okay, fructose, glucose, galactose, maltose, sucrose, all these are simple sugar. Okay, it can be monosaccharide, it can be disaccharide. Okay, so when you see all this name on the label as in the ingredient list, you know that there are a lot of added sugar in the product. Okay, sometimes it can be in the form of solid or granulated sugar, like beet sugar, brown sugar, cane juice crystals, okay, fancy name, cane sugar, castor sugar, coconut sugar. All these are basically sugar in various forms. Okay, they use coconut to produce the sugar, then they claim that this is coconut sugar. They get it from cane, that is cane sugar. They want to make it so easy for consumer to identify it, then they just say, oh, cane juice crystal. Okay. Some other like syrups, okay, liquid form syrups like molasses, okay, or caramel. Another one more popular will be corn syrup or high fructose corn syrup. This is very popular in processed food, okay, whereby they add in high fructose corn syrup as a substitute for sucrose. Okay, you can go to the website to have a list, to have a look at the long list of names that are actually either made of sugar or contains high amount of sugar. So this is actually a tips, okay, a tips for consumer. Okay, if you want to be a smart consumer, we need to read the ingredient list. But sometimes we don't understand the name of the ingredient. Okay, so how can these tips help you? Okay, so if you look at the word and you can see that the end of the word, the word end with OSE, okay, most likely is a sugar. Okay, if you refer back to the previous slide, all those what fructose lah, glucose lah, sucrose lah, maltose lah, lactose lah, ribose lah, all those end with OSE. Okay, so you see the word end with OSE, high chances they are sugar. Okay, not all, but high chances they are sugar. Okay, another word that you can look for is syrups. Okay, so it can be like high fructose corn syrup. Basically, this is also a type of sugar. Okay, malt syrup, a type of sugar. What else? Maple syrup, also type of sugar. Okay, so you see the word syrup, you can equate it as sugar. Okay, aside from syrup, nectar is one. Juices, also another one, but juices, the amount of sugar will be lesser. Okay, it can be like 5% to about 10%. Okay, so it's not highly concentrated type of sugar, but it does, okay, contain sugar. Okay, or concentrated or dried fruits. Okay, basically fruits high in sugar content. If you dry it or you concentrate it, any mention of sugar or sweetener considered as sugar. And the last but not least, honey. So if you see honey in the ingredient list, you know that it contains sugar. Okay, so these are the tips, okay, whereby you can use these tips when you go for shopping, when you look at the product, you look at the ingredient list. If you see any of these keywords or spelling OSE on the word, then high chances they are sugar. Okay. So if you can remember, okay, this is just to recall back your memory, what is the recommended daily sugar intake recommended by WHO is less than 10% of our daily energy intake. Okay, and if your daily energy intake is 2000 kilocalorie, this is the typical amount of energy intake. So 2000 kilocalorie, 10% of this is 200 kilocalorie. And this 200 kilocalorie is equivalent to 50 grams of sugar. Okay, so take this information, remember this information, and when you go for shopping, look at the nutrition labeling. You will see the value for added sugar or total sugar. You can use that as a reference on choosing the right type of product to purchase if you want to control the amount of sugar intake in your diet. Okay, so in general, not more than 50 grams of sugar per day. Okay, but if you can go lower than that, that will be better. Okay. Now, you might be thinking, since you talk, Dr. Tan talked about all this added sugar, this and that. So if I come across a product whereby they claim sugar-free, isn't it a healthier choice? Okay. So yes, if let's say the product is sugar-free, you don't have to worry about the sugar content. Basically, when you say that it's a sugar-free content, the amount can be very, very low. It's not significant, or maybe really there's no sugar in the product. Okay, but then again, you have to think of another thing. Okay, when they say no sugar or sugar-free, you have to think, how can the manufacturer create a product without sugar and it tastes good? Okay, when you remove something good from the product, I mean, tastes good lah. Remove it, it's no longer going to taste good. So there must be some way the manufacturer can still retain the sweetness or the taste good factor in the product without the presence of sugar. Okay, so in industry or in food industry, we use artificial sweetener. Okay, so these are some of the examples. Aspartame is one of the popular type of artificial sweetener. Okay, so although they are permitted, okay, the use of artificial sweetener, we can debate on the pros and cons. Okay, and more research is needed to determine whether the long-term effect of consuming this product, is it going to be healthy to our body, or is it going to be detrimental to our health? Okay, but at the moment, these are the things that you have to take note. When you see that the product claims no sugar or sugar-free, okay, don't be too happy and then grab all the product and consume like no tomorrow. Okay, you have to be careful. Look at the ingredient list. Do you see artificial sweetener? Okay, these are some of the permitted ones. If you do happen to see these names on the ingredient list, then you know that they are added with artificial sweetener. And whether it's good or bad, we're not going to discuss today. Okay, definitely you can look at all the journals saying that it's good as an alternative for sweetener. There will be another set of journals saying that they are bad to our health, is worse than consuming sugar. Okay, so there are pros and cons. Okay, so when you're consuming this product, you have to be very, very careful. Okay, so before I end our session, okay, these are some of the key takeaways. Okay, so one, as an ingredient, product description, when you see the word sugar, they are actually referring to table sugar. Okay, when you see this word sugar in the ingredient, okay, part of the ingredient or as the product description, then the word sugar is referring to table sugar, or the chemical name for this will be sucrose. Okay. If you see the word sugar in the nutrition labeling, okay, usually you will see as total sugar or added sugar. Okay, these are referring to the monosaccharides and disaccharides. Okay, the third one is when you see the word sugar as part of a claim. Okay, so far the claim that we are referring to will be no added sugar, okay, or no sugar or sugar-free. Okay, so when you see this type of claim, is not as, how to say, it's not as simple as just no monosaccharide, no disaccharide. Okay, it's more than that, because you have to look at all the other ingredients that are being used. Okay, some of these ingredients can be indirectly added with sugar, okay, or being processed in a way that the sugar content increases to be very high. So this will be a bit more complex and challenging. Okay, so you have to look at the ingredient list, okay, to really identify or to really know whether are there any sugar present in the product. So remember the tips, okay, look for the word that ends with OSE, or look for the word that contains like nectar, concentrates, or juice, or what, puree sometimes, yes, also puree, what else? Juice, nectar, syrups, okay, and even honey. So if you see this type of words in the ingredient list, then you have to be very careful, okay, because there are sugar inside the product, okay, and most likely they are added sugar. Okay, so I think that's all from me. Thank you very much. Pass back to Mark.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Tan. Thank you so much for the very informative session. I guess the key takeaway is that we have to be aware that the term no added sugar does not mean that there are no sugar present in the product. All right. So we do have questions, mainly by me. What if a product is produced with, like just now, the example that you mentioned with jam, right? But the jam is produced, does not have sugar added into the product. It's just natural occurring sugars in, let's say, the strawberry. So how does that affect the
Because in order to produce
sugar added? Because technically, there is no sugar added. It's just natural occurring sugars. How?
How to say? It's not. I wouldn't say it's impossible to make jam, so-called jam, without the addition of sugar. But in order to qualify the product to be known as to be sold as jam, the total soluble solid should be, if I'm not mistaken, at least 60%. And this 60% of total soluble solid basically is referring to sugar content. And if you rely purely on strawberry to produce this 60 grams of sugar, it's either going to be very expensive or it's not going to work. To get 60% from strawberry itself, I don't think it's possible because strawberry contains sugar, but it's not very high.
Okay. It's not, let's take a different example, say grapes. So I want to make grape jam, right? So all I have to do is just boil it down and then I chill it, it becomes jam.
You see, when you boil it, you are making it become concentrate.
Yes, that's right.
That actually is the third criteria.
But I didn't add sugar, ma.
Yes, but you are adding a concentrate fruit juice.
What?
Yes, that is the third criteria. The food contains no ingredient containing sugar that substitute for added sugar. Example given would be concentrated fruit juice. You don't add sugar, but you concentrate it.
Well, I'm making jam, ma.
Yes, I know.
Jam, I have to boil it down, ma. Right?
If you make jam, it's okay. But if you use this ingredient to make...
I use jam to make a different product. So...
then cannot. Then you cannot claim...
you consider added sugar.
Yes.
Okay. And just now you did mention about, how do... sometimes manufacturers use sugar to extend the shelf life of the products.
Yes.
How does that work actually?
Okay, when we add in sugar to a product, okay, when it's dissolved, it will actually bind with water. Okay, so when you add in more sugar, more water will be bind with the sugar. So when the sugar are bind with the water, they are not able to be used by the microorganism. So in analysis or in food analysis, we have a term called free water. Okay, free water means all those water that are free to be used by the microbe. So if you can reduce the free water value, your product can be less susceptible to microorganism spoilage, because the water are no longer free for the microbe to use, but are being bind to something else. For this example, will be bind to sugar. The more sugar you add in, the more water will be bind to the sugar molecule, the less water will be free for the microbe to use. So when that happens, you can actually extend the shelf life of the product. That's why jam, high in sugar content, you don't have to worry about microbe, but you have to worry about other things like mold.
Okay.
Basically, it's to make, it will reduce the free water in the product. But you have to add in a very high amount, not just like adding 1 gram, it will extend the shelf life. 1 gram is not sufficient. it can.
Yeah, because for microbes to ferment, it uses sugar as well as a carbon source.
Yes, it uses sugar as well, but it also requires water in order to.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. I have KCO who has a question. Let me just read it out. OSEs are safer and healthier than sugar-free foodstuff that have artificial sweeteners.
Like I mentioned just now, okay, the use of artificial are permitted by our regulation. But to say that sugar are better than artificial sweetener or the other way around, artificial sweetener are better than sugar, I think this is still debatable. Okay, this is still debatable. If you are healthy individual and if you don't over consume on artificial sweetener, then I don't see any issue consuming artificial sweetener. But if you plan to consume that product 3 times a day for the next 7 years, then I will advise you to avoid artificial sweetener. But it's just like once a while, occasional, you consume or you take some artificial sweetener, I don't see any problem for healthy individual. But if you are in another category, maybe you have some issue on or health issue, maybe artificial sweetener is not suitable for you. Okay, maybe artificial sweetener will be suitable for you. It depends on individual. So at the moment, I cannot guarantee or I cannot claim that natural sugar are better than artificial sweetener. Okay, but based on my if I'm the consumer, I will try to avoid lah. Okay, I will try to avoid artificial sweetener. If it's avoidable, then but by all means, I will suggest you to avoid it. Okay, but you say that artificial is not good. Maybe not really. It depends on the application. It depends on the amount that you're going to consume. Okay, glucose is good because our body can utilize glucose very effectively. All the cells in our body can metabolize glucose. But if you are consuming fructose, if you're consuming let's say lactose, you might have issue. If you are lactose intolerant, you cannot consume lactose. Even though it's good lah, it's better than artificial sweetener, you cannot consume it because your body does not contain the enzyme to break down lactose. And if you consume that, you will have issue, bloating lah, gas lah, this and that. If you consume a lot of fructose also, it's not good because fructose can only be metabolized by, or most of the fructose will be metabolized by our liver. And if you load our liver with high amount of fructose, it will end up generating fat. Okay, and that is the reason why consuming high fructose content can actually lead to there's a term called fatty. I can't remember the name, but it can do harm. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Okay, it's not because of alcohol, but because of some other thing that actually leads to the high fat content in the liver, which is not good for us as well. So if you really have to consume the OSE, consume it in a moderate amount. Don't consume it in the free sugar form. Consume it in the whole form. Whole form means if you take a number of whole apple, both contains glucose, both contains fructose, both contains most likely sucrose as well. But the one in apple, it comes with other compounds as well, like fiber lah, this and that. So if you consume the whole apple, it'll be good. But if you consume fruit juices, then those are basically like free sugar. You don't have fiber inside, then it might not be so good to you. So consume moderately. I dare not say OSE is better than artificial sweetener. Okay, but if you ask for my opinion, if possible, avoid if you plan to consume that product for a long period of time.
Okay. And the second part to the question is carbohydrates like rice, potato, etc. When broken down are forms of sugar that contributes to diabetes more than sugar.
If you consume a lot of rice, yes, it will also give rise to will give rise to high glucose in your blood. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess what I can add is carbohydrates are an important source of energy for the body, and they are found in a wide range of foods, including rice, potatoes, fruits, and yeah. So when carbohydrates are consumed, they are broken down into glucose, which is used by the body for energy. So it is important to note that all carbohydrates can contribute to high blood glucose levels if consumed in excess, not just sugar alone. In fact, foods like rice and potato can have a significant impact on blood glucose levels due to their high carbohydrate content. Correct?
Correct. So people might thinking, hey, I don't take sugar, but I eat rice. It's not sweet, so there's no sugar inside. Yes, it's not sweet when you're consuming it because they are present in the form of the long chain, the starch, long chain. But in our body, we will digest it, and it will also release sugar. So indirectly, you will have high intake of glucose as well.
Now, I guess it is also important to note that not all carbohydrates are created equal. Foods that are high in fiber, such as whole grains, fruits, and vegetables, are generally considered to be healthier carbs. Carb sources than processed food and sweets, which can be high in added sugar and low in nutrients. So additionally, portion control and balancing carbohydrate intake with other nutrients like protein and fat can also help manage blood glucose levels. So like things like biscuits, cookies, and all that, even like kiampia, we should avoid as well, because these are, there are sugars added, and although it doesn't taste sweet, and although the name is kiampia, it actually contributes to the carbo and also the sugar.
The starch content can be digested by our body, and then also it will be broken down into glucose. So
yeah. So KCO, if you are concerned about the risk of developing diabetes or managing, or you have someone who is managing an existing diabetes diagnosis, it is best that maybe you can contact us via WhatsApp through our care line, and we will be able to help you come up with a regime to manage your sugar level. Okay.
To add one more thing is that there are rice that are being claimed as what low GI rice rice that are suitable for diabetic patient. Those, if you compare to normal rice, are better choices or better option, but that doesn't mean that you can consume a lot. You still have to control the amount of rice that you are going to be that you plan to consume. Control the amount. Don't think that, oh, this is rice for diabetic patient, I can consume 2 plates or 2 bowl or 3 bowl. It's not going to work like that.
Right. Yeah. So practice moderation in everything that we take, which is the most important key takeaway. The other thing is that Dr. Tan, is there a best artificial sweetener?
The best.
Stevia is not artificial. From my understanding, stevia is, derived from a plant. So
derived from plants. Some will put this as artificial sweetener because they are not sugar. Okay, but if you look at regulation, of course, in regulation, stevia has its own falls under separate regulation as compared to artificial sweetener. Okay, the reason I mentioned about artificial sweetener is just that they are not sugar. They do not provide any calorie to our body, but at the same time, they can give the sweetness to the product. So, I mean, in the slide, this is the definition that I use. It's not to say that all these are in the same group. Basically, the message that I want to share is that they do not contribute calorie, okay, and but they do provide sweetness to the product. So if you choose among these few, stevia might be a better option, okay, because it's an extract from plants. But in terms
What
of
about
the
like
aftertaste,
xylitol? What about things like xylitol?
xylitol, sugar,
Xylitol, yeah.
alcohol sugar,
Yeah.
sugar alcohol. Those do contribute calorie as well, but less compared to glucose.
Right. Okay.
They do contribute calorie for sugar alcohol. The example like sorbitol, xylitol, mannitol, all those are sugar alcohol. They might not be as sweet as normal sugar, but they can be used as a so-called sugar substitute or a sugar replacer.
Okay. All right. So let me just see. I don't think there is any other questions. So I guess yeah. So the key takeaway for today is look out for all the oses, all the different toes. And no added sugar does not mean that there are no sugar present in the product itself. And I guess that's all the time we have for today. And if there's no other questions, we will end this session. And if you guys have any questions after this session, please feel free to just post the question in the comment section. And we will get Dr. Tan to answer you. Dr. Lim, do you have any questions?
Yeah, actually, I have one.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Tan. Well, the Chinese always say that the rock sugar is actually better than the normal sugar. What's your opinion?
To me, it's the same thing, still sugar. It might contains other type of maybe mineral inside, okay, but end of the day, it's still sugar. Just like Himalayan salt, still NaCl, but of course it might contain some traces of other minerals in the Himalayan salt. Okay, but end of the day, it's still NaCl. So if you ask me, rock sugar, honey rock sugar, all those are still sugar. Do take it moderately.
They say raw sugar more cooling or culling or holding more.
This one I have no idea. Maybe, but seriously, I have no idea on this one. Maybe you can share your opinion on this one. Is it really better?
Yeah, Dr. Lim.
For me, they are all the same. They are all glucose, and for me, they are all the same.
To me, all the same lah. Just that, of course, they might have some traces of other mineral in the sugar. Okay, but you have to ask: are those traces of minerals really going to improve our health, or is just a way to market the product, saying that it's a better option?
Sometimes I was wondering, could it be the rock sugar is a crystallization of the normal sugar that make it into a big size? Maybe
it has less bleaching process, so it can be healthier. Because like white sugar is very white because they go through bleaching process. So maybe that process actually make white sugar so-called less healthy compared to raw sugar or rock sugar. That could be also another possible.
Yeah, possible.
Right, Dr. Tan, I
You
have one.
to take it moderately lah. Don't take it in a large amount lah. Okay, Mark, sorry.
Yeah, I have one question. Do you see that governments would regulate the naming conventions for all the different type of sugars, in the near future? Like, every now and then there'll be some type of new sugars, new toast, new syrup, new something, that manufacturers will come up with. So will there be a standardization? Do you think there will be a standardization?
Not in the near future.
In
Or
our,
maybe not in our lifetime.
in our lifetime?
Maybe not in our lifetime.
Okay, so if there's no other questions, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And if you have any topic that you are passionate about and you would like to understand more, you can message us directly or can leave it in the comment section, and then we will create the session for you. And in our next session, which is on the 10th of May, it will be with Dr. Siva. We haven't identified what are the topics that we would like to cover on the 10th of May. So you, the audience, if you have anything that you want Dr. Siva to answer or to talk about, please let us know. So also, the new Omicron variant is on the rise. So please take care. Wear your masks when you're in public areas or confined areas. And we hope to see all of you on 10th May. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and take care. See you all. Bye-bye.